Warning, due to some language and subject matter, listener discretion is advised.
In a city with a wealth of combat sports talent, it's inevitable that in an iron sharpens iron atmosphere, all of the best talent will eventually collaborate and come together. And that is exactly what is happening in Denver, Colorado, and surrounding areas. Elevation Fight Team is easily one of the top 3 MMA teams in the world today. And I am lucky, very lucky, to have one of their coaches and owner of High Altitude Martial Arts on the podcast today. You may have seen him in the corner of Curtis Blaydes or Alistair Overeem, but today, Coach and Professor Donnybrook Cody Donovan is getting caught on the mic, and we're going to talk about the road that brought him here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Caught on the Mic. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sitting with Coach Extraordinaire, my friend, Cody Donnybrook Donovan. How the hell are you, man?
I'm good. Good morning, bro. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So you had some exciting news drop through your social media yesterday, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, my wife is pregnant, and we've known about that for a while. And then we did like a gender reveal on Halloween, and I'm gonna have a son, which I'm super excited about. I have 2 daughters, and I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way, bro. I love being a girl dad, but I'm pretty excited about having a boy.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. You know what's funny? I was listening to a podcast you were on almost exactly a year ago, and you and the guys were talking about whether or not you were going to have a third, and you were kind of on the fence, and they were pressing you a little bit if you wanted a boy, and here you are, man.
Yeah, I mean, these things happen. I guess, we weren't, we weren't necessarily planning this, right? So it's kind of like, it's like, all right. Now I'm like, all right, I got to get, 2 kids is amazing. I'm sure 3 kids is going to be awesome. I don't know if I could do 4. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Let's talk a little bit about your origin story. Without any further ado, why don't you introduce yourself and tell my listeners a little bit about who you are and your background.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Cody Donovan. I was a professional fighter for about 12 years, and I wasn't a big name, but I was in all of the rooms that were big at that time, right? So I was basically a professional training partner. I was a training partner for Nathan Marquardt and Rashad Evans and Elliot Marshall and Brendan Schaub, all of the guys that came out of the TKO Grudge team. Did a lot of cross training with Jackson's MMA and all of that stuff, and then at the end of my career, I was able to get signed with the UFC, and it was kind of a little like too little, too late, but it was a good experience. And then after my last fight in Ireland, made the decision to transition fully into coaching and into business and things like that, and that's what's happened. Yeah, now I'm one of the owners of High Altitude Martial Arts, which is a big gym here in Colorado. We're an affiliate of Easton Training Centers and got about 700 students. Man, it's just absolutely crazy in there. And then I coach on Elevation Fight Team, right? Which is what High Altitude Martial Arts. I have a lot of great employees that are smarter than me, and they basically run that place, so that I can be with the fighters all day, man. And that's what I love. That's what I do.
I was reading a little bit of your background information. You were active from 2008 to 2014 as a fighter. The thing that I really enjoyed, your first UFC fight was overseas. It was in Australia, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a crazy one. So, injuries and fights falling through and making more money being a traveling training partner than being a fighter, all that kind of stuff just kind of prevented me from ever really, and also, a lack of courage sometimes, opportunities that I didn't take, things like that, just had me kind of thinking maybe the fight career was done. I remember praying about it and being like, God, put me where you want me. If I'm not supposed to be fighting anymore, put me where you want me, right? And I was fully committed to transitioning into whatever was next in life. And my manager at the time, Brian Hamper, called me one day. I was at the grocery store, and he's like, "How much do you weigh?" And I'm like, we had this call plenty of times. I was like, I don't know, 235 or something like that. And he's like, "Ooh, okay." He's like, "You think you can make 205?" I was like, "I don't know, how many days do I got?" I think it was like 7 or something like that. But this is how he said it. He goes 9 days, but you really have 7. So I'm thinking like Japan or something. I'm like, where are we going? He's like, Australia. I'm like, Australia? What's in Australia? And he's like, are you sitting down? And I'm like, UFC? And he's like, yeah, bro. He's like, if you can make weight, you can take this fight, right? This guy who used to fight at heavyweight, Nick Penner, he had his opponent drop out and they need a replacement. And I was like, yeah, obviously, let's go. So just cut all that weight, which was hell. That was definitely the hardest cut I ever had. You retain a lot of water on a flight, but particularly like that kind of flight, So me and Elliot Marshall, we head out there, and it was a fun week, but the nerves are pretty big, obviously, when you're about to fight in the UFC. And we were somehow able to get through that and just got to this cool place. And the day of the fight, I was the first fight on the card, and that my fight took place at 7 a.m., right? So I woke up at 5. I walked down to the beach, Gold Coast, Australia, man. I watched the sun come up, and the ocean was vicious that day, dude. It was like the ocean was trying to eat Australia or something, and it just gave me some good energy, man. These nasty waves, and I was like, let's go do this. But that cut really took its toll on me, bro. If you watch the fight, the first time he touches me, I fall down. I get up, he touches me again. Bro, I swear to God, at one point, he hits me, and my head hits the mat, and to this day, what I remember is like sinking into like some soft clouds or something. And it was like so relaxing. And somebody was like in the background yelling, right? And I'm like, what are they yelling about? And then I heard an Australian accent in the people yelling. And I was like, oh shit, I'm fighting. And I like got up and like, I opened my eyes and I was like in the midst of arm barring him, like somehow in my sleep or something. Anyway, I got up and I knocked him out and I won a $50,000 bonus. And yeah, man, it was cool. It was like really cool. It was a great experience.
You didn't even know you won the bonus until later on, right?
Correct. Yeah. So because I had gotten hit so many times and there was just no juice in my brain. Like you can't cut that much weight and like rehydrate properly. I tried and it just wasn't happening. So, and obviously we cut weight a lot smarter now, right? But back then we were kind of knuckleheads and we didn't have a lot of the same criteria. We could use IVs and things like that, which allowed us to get a little more dangerous with our cuts. But I'm riding in the ambulance with Elliot to the hospital, and I keep apologizing to him. Apparently, I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry, man. Sorry, this camera's shaking. I'm like, man, we came all the way out here and I lost and I blew it, man. I blew my opportunity. He's like, shut up. He's like, you won, bro. You won a fucking bonus. He's like, you won. So I remember that. I remember being like, I did? But apparently that was like the 10th time that I had said it or something like that. So I fractured my orbital lobe. So we were at the hospital. And then I said it one more time to the nurse. I was like, yeah, it didn't go good. And then I was like, oh wait, it did go good. Like I remembered. And then from then on, I remembered that it went well.
Oh, that is phenomenal. That's a great story, man. How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu specifically?
A long time. A long time is the short answer. So I started doing jiu-jitsu in 1997 with some buddies of mine who at the time were blue belts under a guy who trained with Royce Gracie, something like that, right? And this is what jiu-jitsu looked like in the 90s. Like there were 2 people in Colorado that were doing it, David Ruiz, Amal Easton, that had like legit connections. And then there were the Nathan Marquarts and the Clarence Thatches and guys like that were training grappling, but didn't necessarily have like a direct lineage to like the Gracies or something like that. So, man, I wanted it so bad. Like that, as a high school kid, all I wanted to do was learn jiu-jitsu. I had seen jiu-jitsu. We go to Hollywood Video and we get these UFC video tapes. but we'd have to sneak to watch them. It was like we were watching something inappropriate or something like that, right? Like our parents would, don't watch that, like it was like too violent or something. We'd watch it and then we'd slow it down and watch it and watch it and watch it. Then we go do it in the backyard. And then I met these guys that actually train jiu-jitsu, Arturo Fernandez, John Fowler, and I was able to train a little bit with them. Fast forward a couple of years, it's like 1999. I have a job and I have enough money to, like, literally I spend my entire paycheck at this job I had driving across town, like all the way across town, hour-long drive or longer, to go jump in and train jiu-jitsu. Trained there for like a year and a half. And then college happened. During college, I was a blue belt and I thought I was the man, but I didn't step on a mat for like 2 or 3 years, realistically. I was just getting in bar fights and being a knucklehead. End of college, had kind of a traumatic couple months, broke up with this girl that I'd been dating for a long time, quit my job, moved back to Denver, all that kind of stuff. And was like, dude, I got to get back into jiu-jitsu. And then I've been doing it since then. So that would have been about like maybe 2003, I think, something like that.
Sure. But getting into jiu-jitsu in the 90s, you're really getting into the ground level of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I don't think people that are kind of foreign to the sport realize how modern or recent Brazilian jiu-jitsu is to the States.
Yeah.
It's terribly underscored. I remember looking in the old Century martial arts magazines and seeing advertisements for that first 3 UFC events. And I've talked with friends in the past, and UFC 1 in particular almost plays out like an infomercial for Brazilian jiu-jitsu to a certain degree. And
that's how it was, dude. And studying it at that age, even as like inadequate as my training was, like not knowing now, like, man, we weren't doing anything. We were just studying some submission moves and prioritizing exposing the back. That was basically all we were doing, right? But it was still, in regards to like getting in street fights in college or being able to defend myself or like grappling with my friends who were wrestlers and things like that, it was like bringing a laser gun to the Revolutionary War. Like they just didn't have a clue, bro.
Right.
Straight up. Like arm bars and rear naked chokes at will. or try, like, that's how it was, man, which might not be the best thing for a young man. If I think that I can armbar or triangle choke anyone on the planet at 19, that's probably not the best idea, but whatever, it worked out.
It's the pathway to trouble.
Yeah.
MMA was not originally your pathway. Do I recall that correctly? Originally, you were going to just compete in jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah, well, I liked MMA, but I was enrolled at the Art Institute. I didn't have a lot of money growing up, so it took a lot for me to get into that college and come up with the finances and stay focused and you build my art portfolio and all that stuff. And I was basically studying to be a modeler, so to build 3D environments, build 3D things like that, right? And I was all in on that. So I was doing that, and jiu-jitsu was my hobby, but I think I was a purple belt at this time, probably, and was a big guy. I was lifting weights and things like that. And Nate Marquardt was one of my main teachers. He spent most of his time in Albuquerque at that time. He was on that Albuquerque team, which at that point in MMA history, that was the room, bro. That was like the blue mat in New York right now for jiu-jitsu or something, right? Or the blue mat last year for jiu-jitsu. Like that, being in the Jackson's room, you were on the tip of the mountain in the center of the universe for MMA. And Nate lived there, basically. And I worked for him at his gym. I was teaching fundamental jiu-jitsu and things like that. And he asked me to come down to help a couple of his guys. Were all in camp at the same time. It was Joey Villasenor and Keith Jardine, two pioneers in the sport and great guys. And I went down there. They just needed like a jiu-jitsu body, basically. And I went down there and just got the shit beat out of me, and I remember trying to play bottom game, like jiu-jitsu bottom game, which I was decent at. And these guys were beating my ass, just pinning my wrists and hitting me. And just, it was crazy. Right. And they gave me some good pointers and stuff. And then I got in the car and I'm driving back to Denver, and I think that's like a 7-8 hour drive. And I just decided, I was like, well, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to be a fighter. Like, this is it, just seeing all of them, I was there for a week, and the team atmosphere, the brotherhood, all that, dude. It was like, I probably spent the rest of my life trying to recreate the feeling I had in that room that week,
I got to commend you because it takes a special sort of person to take that large of a bet on themselves. I don't feel that society at large right now is willing to bet on themselves as much as you just described on that drive from Albuquerque back to Denver.
Well, so it's one of these things like this. It's like the first couple of days of the week, I'm getting the hell beat out of me. Right. And then I get a couple of pointers and I'm like, and then I start doing okay. Not great, but okay. Catching a guy here, doing this. I don't think I caught any of the good guys, but like started to do okay. And, Greg and some of the coaches who were down there at that time maybe gave me a pointer or gave me a little bit of like, hey, man, you feeling like you're going to do this or something, you should do this, something like that. So like the right coach saying the right thing to me went a long way. But also like I think that's one of the things that all fighters have is that I think that I'm this, right? I think that I'm whatever it is, right? And if fighting is like the answer to a question. So it's like I think that I'm this thing. And there's only one way to prove it. And most of the world wants to walk around and like they think, I think I'm this thing. But if you give them any opportunity to test it or prove it, they run from it. I see this all the time in jiu-jitsu. I just told the story the other day. This big meathead comes into my gym like 5 or 6 years ago. And he's talking about how he wants to be this and he wants to be that and all this stuff. And in the course of like the first couple of days that he's there, he gets paired up with this, at the time, like a 14, 15-year-old girl named Emma Soho. And in Colorado, everybody knows about the Sohos. They're savages. These kids are just killers, right? I know them since they were little kids. And this guy gets paired up with Emma Soho, and she beats his ass. She just like embarrasses him, right? And she's not even going hard. And this guy does what everybody else does, right? We walk back to our car, we sit in our car, and we have that like moment of truth where we're like, well, now I know the truth. Now I know I'm not as good as I thought I was. So I can come back and get good, or I can just walk away from this thing, and in a few weeks I'll believe the lie again or something like that. Does that make sense?
No, totally.
Yeah, so the drive back to Denver for me from Albuquerque was that moment of truth. It was like, okay, I'm not the badass that I thought that I was, but I think I can be. And I want to test myself. And ultimately I did, and I got the answer. I know exactly where I'm at, right? And that answer is I was pretty good, but I made some bad decisions along the way, right? And some good decisions, and probably didn't reach my full potential. But even if I had my full potential, wasn't world champion status, and that's okay. And along that way, I also got the greatest internship in coaching that a guy could ever have gotten. I was part of too many world championship camps to even count, and got to train directly under Greg Jackson, Trevor Whitman, Amal Easton, Faraz Zahabi. I mean, the list is like too long to even say. So many good coaches, bro. So many good coaches. Leister Bowling, Brian Bruce, just dudes that changed my life, changed the way I thought about this sport. There's a group of guys that graduated from that group. A few of them are still fighting. Most of us have graduated to life or coaching. And I truly believe that we see MMA different than 80% of the other teams on the world. And I don't mean that in like an arrogant way, but when I go to like the coaches summit and stuff like that, right, and I listen to most of the coaches talking, there are coaches at some of the other key teams that we're all thinking the same thing. We're happy to hear how far behind the rest of you are. They're literally still teaching the arts separately and hoping that they blend together on fight night and just things like that. So, or the hierarchy of positions in jiu-jitsu, right? Like that. Damage doesn't respect that hierarchy. I don't know, things like that. So I feel very blessed is what I'm saying, right? That decision that I made on the ride home from Albuquerque changed the course of my life forever.
Dude, that's phenomenal, because that's the perfect transition to the next question I had for you is, the fighting career ended in 2014. Is there a certain mindset transition when you go from gladiator warrior to training gladiators and warriors?
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's really tough in the beginning, and it still sneaks its way in there. And it's this thing like, do you put them first, or are you still putting you first? You know what I mean? And I don't want to get too far into the psychology, but any one of us that fights probably has some wounded little boy living inside him, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be trying to use violence, as this way to justify ourselves or find gratification or whatever. So I got to really keep myself in check. In the beginning, it was very difficult, but to this day, I still have to have solid awareness, and I have to remember that I'm here for these guys because the little guy inside me gets triggered, and I start making it about me, and that becomes very toxic coaching, which is very easy to do. Also, when you're a professional fighter, you're encouraged to be selfish. Like, you should be thinking about you. Nobody else is going to think about you. You're the business, you're the athlete, you're the everything. You have to put yourself first. God bless all those wives and girlfriends that went through that. My wife, man, is amazing, and God bless the wake of girlfriends that I had before her when I was an amateur fighter and stuff. What they put up with, it's just. You got to be selfish. But when you transition into coaching, you got to be able to put your guys first. And that's difficult in the beginning, but you find that rhythm. And I wasn't ready to go right into coaching. I thought I was. I got done fighting. I started trying for a little bit, and it was just like I was grinding gears, butting heads with everybody. I think Alistair Overeem was the one that kind of was like, take a little time off and come back when you're ready. When I was ready, he brought me back at Muscle Farm and made me an assistant coach. And I got to watch him and Christian Allen and Elliot Marshall and the success that they were having with their guys. I started working with a couple of guys that were working their way up. I got to work with Bojan Velikovic, who was an absolute monster, right? Whatever room that guy's in, that guy is one of the most talented guys in the room. Just a savage. And then Alistair, we had this. Okay, so Bojan makes his UFC debut in Croatia. And while we're out there, another young man made his UFC debut, and it didn't go well for him. It was Curtis Blaydes. He fought Francis Ngannou. His eyes swelled up real bad. He was out there just kind of like crossing his feet, and it was like he had two left feet. He had his buddies, and like a manager or something in his corner at the time. And things didn't go his way, right? And I did have a conversation with him that week where he doesn't remember it, but I was like, hey, buddy, you should come out to Denver. Ironically, his manager at the time, who changed the course of his life, got in contact with Alistair Overeem and was like, yo, you should come to Denver. So Curtis came out to Denver. Alistair, Elliot, and Christian, they had too much on their plate. They were already working with a bunch of guys in the UFC and were traveling constantly. And they said, let's give this guy to Cody and Vinny. Let's see how Cody and Vinny do with this guy. And that's been one of the most rewarding relationships so far in coaching, man, is that the relationship of me and Vinny and Curtis. And there are lots of examples of that now. We have that relationship with lots of guys, but that one's been very special.
Right. A lot of what you were describing is the manager versus leader mindset too, where a manager says and a leader does. A lot of times, whenever I'm mentoring people, that's one example that I like to personally give is on day one of leading somebody, I say, I pick the hardest task in the room and I do it so everybody sees me doing it and they know that I'm not willing to ask them to do something that I'm not willing to do myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that you haven't already done. Yeah.
Exactly. Let's go down the roster of guys that you've worked with in recent years, because Elevation in 2020 won MMA Junkie's Fight Team of the Year, and I think deservedly so. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, 2020, 2021 were pretty crazy years. Man, there was a little rip there where I think Vinny and I and coaching in our coaching pairing with certain athletes, dude, we came close to winning like 20 fights in a row or something crazy, dude. And, that's cool. That lets you know that you have something special, that you're connecting with your guys, that you have good buy-in, that you all believe in each other and things like that. And, nothing like that lasts forever. I know it certainly, with the guys that I work with on the team, it got rocky. We've had some rocky patches, but good, man. Good. I think that when things get rocky, we get better. Yeah. It helps us focus on the things we need to focus on. But some of the guys that I was able to have the privilege of working with during that time, tons of guys on the amateur scene and up and coming guys, but on the big show, man, Alistair Overeem is a huge one, right? I mean, Alistair Overeem coming to us and we fought Alistair, me, Vinny Curtis combo, and Austin was in the corner as well. We went and fought Alistair, and we beat Alistair in a pretty spectacular fashion. And then Alistair immediately reached out, wanted to come train. Alistair met Christian and some of the other coaches when he was out here, and just went all in. And that was really cool, man. I almost got, when I was a security guard at a hospital in college, and I almost got fired one time because I snuck into there was this doctor's office like after hours who had internet, and he didn't have a code on his computer. So we would all just go use his internet at nighttime. And my manager comes in one time, and I'm literally watching a live Alistair Overeem fight on the internet, like in Japan, on some thread that I'm stealing or something, and I almost got fired. And then to turn around, however many years later, to be his head coach, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Plus,
just the rip we had with him. Like, if you count out, him getting knocked down with no seconds left in the fight by Jairzinho, dude, think about the resurgence that we had with Alistair. Right. That is really special, man. And like, Alistair had this reputation of not being coachable and not wanting to listen to guys, but I found it the opposite. I found him like, he wanted to study. He wanted to get better. He was like all in, and it was really, really fun. Yeah. It was really fun. Bunch of main events and cool stuff like that. But, Neil Magny, right? Neil Magny is an absolute monster. I've been able to work with him his last few fights. Austin Hubbard, we got to grow Austin to get to that big show. That's been huge. That's been a really fun journey. Yeah, man. I mean, tons of guys. Right now, we're building this guy, Zak Pauga. I say building up, right? I'm really excited about him. He's like,
me too.
I'm a nerd, right? I'm a gamer. I play like tabletop war games and things like that, and Zach does too. But nerds are able to like figure out, testing a game and building rules and building strategies and stuff like that. So working with him is very rewarding because I get to share that part of it with him. I know he gets that, which I think makes him a very cerebral fighter. I think he's going to do really well. I really do.
I agree. When I got to talk with Zach, I was super, super, super impressed with the guy because he's so level. It's like he's level and he's humble. He's accepted life wins and life losses, and he's done really well with it. And I'm really excited to see where his career goes next.
Yeah, well, he's open about the fact that his ego had gotten the best of him in other sports, right?
Right.
He's talked about it, and sometimes we get to touch on that, right? If he starts feeling himself a little bit. Like, it's okay to feel yourself, but if he starts kind of like mouthing off and getting, then we can be like, hey, bro, remember where this got you last time. Let's stay humble. Let's work together, that kind of thing. And he's able to just like, he's able to keep it really level headed. He's also able to like, one of the most fun things about him is I have some athletes that keep wanting to add more. They're like, let's add more. They think that the answer is like, and this can be tough because if you're a student at a martial arts academy, that's what you do. You come to more classes. You learn more stuff. Now you're invited to the intermediate classes. Now you're invited to the advanced classes. You keep getting more information. But more is the opposite of what you need in combat, right? One of Jocko's like principles of combat is simplicity. Simplicity, man. And Zach gets that. We are constantly trying to reorganize and simplify his system, his fighting system. And I'm a huge proponent of simple fighting systems. So that's one of the things that's going to go a long way for him.
That last fight of his, my wife was out of town, and my wife and kids were out of town. And it's 11:30 my time, because I'm in Nebraska, right? 11:30 my time. I'm watching the Cage Warriors event. I can't even sit down during the second round. I'm like 5 feet away from the TV. I'm like, what the fuck's going to happen next, man? Yeah.
So, dude, he made some veteran adjustments in that fight. Like,
yes, he did.
What he did in the third, because, it was a close fight. What he did in the third with utilizing where he was standing versus what he was landing, right? So, generals have been doing this for thousands of years. If you can control where the battle takes place, then you can control the output of your opponent. You can control the decisions they make, all of this stuff, right?
Right.
when Zak decided in that third round to control the center of the cage and to keep Marcus in the outside 6 feet of the cage, Marcus's output went down drastically. Zak's output didn't necessarily go up, but he was still outscoring Marcus. And, it was a great choice. And that's hard to do, man, especially in the third round when you're fatigued and you got cracked once or twice,
Yeah.
Also, like, moving someone into the outside 6 usually ends with a very close zone. It ends chest to chest, right? Like a car crash. So Zak's ability to pressure Marcus backwards, but not overcommit and get clinched up where we weren't winning, even though Zak's really good there, Marcus was doing well in that position. So had to make that adjustment as well. Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it was great. What's next?
Trying to find an opponent for Neil. Neil has he's signed an agreement to fight on a certain date, but doesn't have an opponent yet. So we're trying to find an opponent for Neil. We have Razak coming up in January. Razak just started working with us. So Razak came out with the Usmans, right? So I work with Mo Usman, who's the bigger little brother of Kamaru. Those guys were friends and training partners in Texas. So he's out here. His last camp went great. The kid's got great work ethic. He's an absolute stud. Somebody told him he was a striker, but he's actually a grappler. He's a black belt in judo. He has amazing top game. He's really good at getting up. I'm pretty excited about him, man. As far as if we're building monster cars and somebody brings the Razak chassis into your garage and they're like, what can you do with this? You're like, anything I want. I can do a lot with this, right? So really, really excited about him, and he's just got a good attitude. He's a good person. He's fighting in January.
Yeah.
I think that one's been announced, right? Has that one been announced? Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, so he's fighting Joaquin Buckley. So a lot of studying happening there, trying to, solve that puzzle. Just lots going on, right? We just had Corey fight last weekend, so I know Corey will be back in the lab with Christian and his coaches making the right adjustments and stuff. Because what a talented kid he is, man. That kid is just he's just a stud, man. And he's got a few more little things to tweak, and I think some in my opinion, there's this structure part of mixed martial arts that it's this fine line, because a guy that's able to do what Corey does in the ring, in the cage, when those big lights are on, that takes a little bit of not giving a shit about the structure. You know what I mean? You just gotta be free to be able to move like that and do what he does. But you also have to have respect for the structure and the rules and all of that stuff in order to secure a victory, or in order to win a round, to win, because there are rules, there are judges, there are points, all that kind of stuff. And I think these last two fights are helping shift him in that direction. And once he locks that down, dude, once Corey is able to play the points game and have the damage output and the intelligence that he has in there, I think he's going to be able to make late adjustments and, make adjustments to his style in later rounds and things like that. And I think he'll be unbeatable. I really do. And, the road looks a little bit different for everybody. So, yeah, he didn't get there this time around, but I don't think that means shit. I think good. And when he does get there, he's going to be that much better, in my opinion.
So some fun stuff. Is it true that your wife took up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on a bet, and what part did you play in that bet?
Yeah, I don't even remember exactly what the bet was now. But yeah, she lost the bet. She had to start doing jiu-jitsu. She said she says that, but I know she wanted to do jiu-jitsu because our daughter was about to start doing it. Her sister, right? Her sister is Bobby, and Bobby's one of my best purple belts. Has been training jiu-jitsu for a long time and is right. A savage, one of my favorite students. So, right. So when we have Bobby and Cora, my oldest daughter, and we're a jiu-jitsu family. So she says the bet made her do jiu-jitsu. I can't remember right now. I don't remember exactly what the bet was. She did lose a bet. She did have to come try jiu-jitsu class. But after that, she was all in. I wasn't at home going, babe, you need to do jiu-jitsu today. She was telling me hey, can you pick up the kids? I have class. And I'm like, wait, what? Her training became an inconvenience for me. You know what I'm saying? But I was really happy. I was really, really, really happy about it. Obviously, she's not training right now because she's pregnant.
Right.
But I'm excited for her to get back to it.
So what are some of the unique skills and unique mindset unique to you that has helped you be successful in your fighting career, in your entrepreneurialism, and as a coach?
In coaching, I think the unique skills would be that as a jiu-jitsu guy, like I kind of said earlier with the Jackson story, as a jiu-jitsu guy first that wanted to be good at MMA, I had to learn quickly all of the parts of jiu-jitsu that basically were useless in MMA. Does that make sense? And that helped me create this like list of patterns that one could assume most people with baseline jiu-jitsu skills are going to do, right? So like most blue belts follow this line of thinking, right? And that has allowed me as a coach to create a damage-based system that I think breaks jiu-jitsu pretty good. I think you can give me a decent wrestler, and I can probably have him finish in top-level black belts in a fight, So I think that's a unique thing to me. As far as the entrepreneurial stuff, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not really scared to try anything. I've had because of the experiences in my life where I had a plan and I was like, this is how it has to go. And it didn't go that way. Maybe it just blew up in my face altogether, right? Like I blew my shoulder out real bad when I was a fighter and had this huge layoff. And during that layoff, Nate asked me to manage the gym. So I learned, I didn't know shit about business management. I started managing the gym and then now I own a big, successful, awesome gym. You know what I mean? And successful in that it changes the lives of lots of people. Lots and lots of people get to come in there and make their lives better. I also found out that happened for me. Early on in life, I didn't really know what I wanted, and I thought that more money was going to make me happy or something like that. And jiu-jitsu saved my life, and I think it can save yours. And I tell that to people every day, and I think we do it every day. I mean, I know we do it every day, stuff like that. So I think maybe just doing things for the right reasons. I guess I would say God's plan. I call it God's plan. Is just basically that the way that I wanted to do things rarely works out. So when it doesn't work out, I don't panic as much as I used to. I'm like, okay, cool. Then there's this obviously there's something I'm not seeing. And 10 times out of 10, the worst things that have happened to me have always turned into the best thing. They've always turned into the best thing. And I guess just my ability to see that and have faith that is going to continue to happen gives me the courage to just keep pulling the trigger and keep trying stuff and all that. One more thing, coaching-wise, I came from a world, in the jiu-jitsu world, you learn a move because somebody taught it to them and somebody taught it to them, and there's almost always lineage in the move. Like this series came from this guy. Sometimes it's named after that guy or whatever, Gordo, half guard, things like that, right? I came from that world where if it hadn't been stamped off and approved by your predecessors, then you weren't actually learning something. And then I met Greg Jackson, right? Greg Jackson doesn't give a shit about that. Greg Jackson says, I have an idea, let's try it. And I remember being in a room the first couple of times and he'd be like, I don't know about this, but I think I want to try this thing because I've been thinking about it. And I'd be like this, looking around the room at the other guy's faces like, are we going to let this happen, man? He's just going to make this shit up right here? But I'd see them all in studying. And I was like, oh shit, this is how it's done. This is a damn genius thinking outside the box and not having to teach some shit that he learned from somebody else. And seeing that as a young man, dude, that changed my life, dude. That changed everything for me, Phenomenal.
Yeah. So earlier you briefly mentioned Jocko, and I've gone through your social media feed before, and I see all these awesome quotes in your social media feed. Who are your heroes?
None of it's mine. Yeah, none of it's mine, right?
Who are some of your personal heroes?
Well, I sit in this chair that I'm in right now every morning at 6 a.m. and I read a little Jocko. I read a little Daily Stoic. I read the Bible. Yeah, those three things. And when I can find parallels and stuff there, that's always like a magic moment. Those are three go-tos. That happens every day. Heroes. I don't know, man. I always try to be the hero in my own story. You know what I mean? Like I was a little kid that got beat up a lot and spent a lot of my life thinking that I wasn't valuable and I didn't have worth. And as much as I'd like to look up to other heroes and stuff like that, the man that showed up in my life and rescued the little boy was me. It's me. I rescued me. Yeah, man. So I think if I have a hero, if I have a man that I look up to, it's parts of me looking up to parts of me, if that makes any damn sense, you know?
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that answer. And honestly, sir, the world is a better place with you in it. I love the work that you've been doing.
Thank you, bro.
It is no accident that Elevation is easily in the top 3 worldwide, and you're a good portion of that. Where can my listeners find you online?
So the only place where I'm active online is Instagram, and that's just Donnybrook Cody. My old fight handle, Donnybrook, and then my first name, Cody. That updates, other social media platforms, but that's the only place where I actually post anything. I try to not be too,
right.
I'm I like to say the internet is not a place, so I'm not going to go there, but
yes,
but
and I would recommend, if you're not following them, whether you live in Colorado or not, I would still follow High Altitude Martial Arts and Elevation Fight Team on all forms of social media. One of my favorite follows, my personal favorite fight team, some of my favorite people a part of that. Thanks for doing the show, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So am I an honorary member of the team?
Sure. Come down, bro. We'll get you some gloves, bro. What practice do you want to jump into?
Way back in the day when I was playing in rock bands, I was a nerd about the minutia regarding the music business, and I have found that I'm starting to get that way about the fight game. This episode was nothing short of a treat. I want to thank Cody Donovan and my hookups at Elevation Fight Team once again for making another episode awesome as can be. Make sure you are giving them a like and follow on all forms of social media, Elevation Fight Team, and High Altitude Martial Arts. And while you're giving them a like and follow on social media, make sure you're following Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or any place where you find a social network. Also, I ask for that 5-star rating on Apple Podcast app. It always helps to push us to the top of the search queue when people are looking for new content to listen to. Please visit www.caughtonthemic.com. This has been Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark. I'm Michael Clark. Until next time, thank you.